Hello, good evening, and welcome to Monkeys with Fire. How is everybody tonight? Hope you're all well. Hope you had a good and exciting weekend. So then, we have another role-playing game system to explore tonight. What are we taking a look at? We are venturing into the final frontier, taking a look at Star Trek Adventures Holodecks campaign guide from MODIPHIUS Entertainment. This, as it says, is a campaign guide. It gives you all the details, including characters and settings and themes from the popular animated Star Trek show Holodecks, which a lot of people will be talking about at this time. Time of recording, the Holodecks crew have just done a crossover event with the Strange New Worlds crew, so you can check that out on Paramount Plus, I would imagine. Let's say hello to the chat. Good evening, Mystical. Hello, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. As I start with any of these roleplay deep dives, I am no role-playing game expert. I played RPGs back in my college days, took a very, very long break, and now I am coming back to them, rediscovering what is available out there, seeing how much they have changed. So if you do have any questions about the book we're going to take a look at tonight, please leave a message in the chat or leave a comment, and I will do my best to answer it or focus in on the area that you want me to bring more attention to. Mystical, are you all set and ready to join me? Okay, let's bring you on in. Good evening. Are you terrified for tonight's show?
I am.
Well, it's gonna be fine. It's going to be fine. Let me start off with actually a little bit of an anecdote. A couple of weeks ago, we took a look at the Coriolis RPG, didn't we? Which yes. we both really enjoyed. And part of the setup to understanding the game is that the writer basically gave some inspirational TV shows and movies and books to check out. Two of which were, I think, the Aliens movie and Firefly. And I think both of us, we've both watched Firefly, and we were definitely talking about the characters, and you had a favourite character, didn't you?
Yes, Kaylee.
Kaylee, who Kaylee is the...
engineer.
That's it, she's the engineer, isn't she? So this kind of informed a little bit of what type of character that you thought you would have in a future game. Well, I received an email from a viewer who had watched that particular stream. And basically they were talking about that they had watched the stream and had never seen Firefly and didn't really know what we were talking about. So they went and discovered Firefly. To which then they wrote the email basically saying, "Oh my goodness, this was amazing. What an amazing show that I have missed out on, that I had no idea was out there. Thank you so much. You know, it was brilliant." To which I wrote back, "So what did you think of the movie?" To which they wrote back, "What movie?" So, of course, then I had to lead them on to Serenity, to which that was then another revelation of, oh my goodness, how amazing was that? But we also spoke about other shows, didn't we? We spoke about, I think, Babylon 5 and I think Battlestar Galactica. To which I believe that they will be watching those. But I also mentioned Star Trek. And it's surprising that, you know, I think everybody knows what Star Trek is because it's kind of permeated into the common consciousness, hasn't it? But there are groups of people who haven't seen it or only maybe think of a particular crew, and that maybe denotes their age, depending, you know, what generation of crew you might be aware of. But of course, Star Trek has been going for so long. I mean, it started in the 60s, so I'm sure we're up to past their 75th anniversary, or getting close to it. I think it must be around that time. And I believe that this person is going to go off and watch Star Trek, which of course is a massive undertaking. There must be, I don't know what, 900, maybe 1,000 hours worth of television out there by now, of all the programs that you could watch. And that is before you even then start going into books and comics and games. There's just so much out there. But to dealing with tonight's book, it made me think a little bit of what things were like when I was a lad, when Star Wars was only 3 films, and how much value I got from source books that were available for what was the early Star Wars role-playing game. And it's funny how those books, many years later, have actually informed the canon for what is Star Wars now. So these writers who were creating this role-playing game needed to make up ships and give them designations and make up names of planets and make up the history of the planets to populate this gaming world. And all of that now has become part of Star Wars lore. So source books, an amazing sort of treasure trove of information that if you are into a franchise, even if you just know it from you know, the top level, there's so much that they offer as far as delving into it and finding out more, whether it is actually part of the canon or whether it's things that have been created by the writers to flesh out the areas that the canon hasn't quite got to yet. And in some instances, they actually might end up using them. So we did talk about this prior to the show, that you're not necessarily a Star Trek watcher, are you?
No, not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit. Okay. But you have, of course, I'm sure have read and looked through many source books of other gaming systems, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to kind of deal with this from 2 angles. I'm going to come at it from the Star Trek fan angle, and maybe you'll look at it from the source book angle and see, because again, like we haven't actually dealt with a source book, have we, on the channel? We've always been dealing with core rules. So we're going to take a look at this and see how it potentially enhances a core rule book, and what value we sort of can get from it. So that's the kind of the plan. Let's see how we do. All right, but let's jump to the table. Let's have a look actually at the physical book.
I mean, my husband and I watched Shark Trek last night. Does that count?
Shark Trek. Well, that's not far off.
It's Shark Week, so they had a special of Josh Gates from Expedition Unknown went diving with William Shatner to see sharks. So that was it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's cool. I mean, Yes, William Shatner does loads and loads of different sort of TV shows. There's so many, I probably can't keep count of them now. But I didn't realise that was maybe a passion of his then. Because usually actors get involved in things that they're interested in, don't they?
He's an experienced diver. That wasn't even like it wasn't his first time or nothing like that. He's done diving before.
Right. And of course, was it last year or the year before he went up into space?
I think so. I think it was last. Yeah.
That was last year, wasn't it? With the
I think so.
Is it the Blue Origin? I think that's what it's called. Somebody on the channel can correct me if I'm wrong there. And I wonder, does it make him the oldest person to be up in space as well? I think.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, because he's yeah, I think so. He's possibly the first. Well, he's definitely the first. Is he the first actor and the first space-themed actor to go into space before Tom Cruise goes on in a few years' time? So yes, we'll see. All right. So anyway, here we go. We have the physical book. As I sort of mentioned in the intro, this week, I think in fact it was the weekend because it was Comic-Con, Paramount released the special crossover episode where the characters of Boimler and Mariner crossed over from Star Trek Lower Decks from the animated into the live action Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I believe you can get to watch that now on Paramount Plus. So this sort of deep dive into the book here is incredibly timely, and I believe also that MODIPHIUS has brought forward the release date. This book was meant to release on the first week of August, and they did it today. So you can now actually purchase the book, get it shipped out to you, but also get the PDF instantly. So it's all happening this week, which is pretty good. As we have come to expect from MODIPHIUS books, the quality is incredibly high. The layout is very, very clean and easy for you to understand. They have a handy little bookmark in there so that you can reference pages. It takes screenshots from the series. All of the art and graphic design is from the Star Trek shows. So if you are a fan of Star Trek, this is just instantly recognizable. But we'll get to look at some of the more specific details as we go through. What we're looking at page-wise, it is 240 pages. So it's a pretty decent sized book. We've got lots of D20 tables to roll on. I have my dice all set and ready. Let's see what trouble I can get into.
All the trouble. Just
all the
of
trouble.
it.
Well, and that would be very thematic for this particular group of characters. It's definitely all about the trouble. Okay, so let's jump to the PDF. As I say, if you purchase the book, then you get the PDF version as well, which of course is very helpful when running a game. You can have it on your tablet, be able to flick through and find pages very easily. Okay, so let's go with this. So we're going to be looking, as I say, from two angles. I'm going to look from the Star Trek, and you're going to look from a more sourcebook campaign guide sort of a perspective. And I just want to make sure, where's my little mouse? There it is. Okay. Okay, so it's nice that everything just fits on, contents-wise, fits on one page here. 9 chapters in total. We got a couple of mini campaigns at the end. And ultimately, I think that the main chapter that I was drawn to is the state of the galaxy, and we'll sort of hit that first. But what I thought was really handy is we have a little bit of an introduction as we go through. We have a foreword from... Just looking here, sorry. Did I skip past it? Oh no, it's because it's in white. That's why I'm getting confused. We got a forward from the creator of the Star Trek Lower Decks. We then have a bit of an introduction. And this is giving us details on basically how to use this guide. What it is going to sort of bring to your games of Star Trek adventures. And then what I find is very, very useful is this supplement structure. And basically, this goes through and breaks down each of the chapters and explains just basically what that chapter's all about in just a little bit more detail. And I thought this is a great idea because it only takes a page and you get a good sort of feel of the book straight away. Have you seen this in other books at all?
No, I've not seen it where it summarizes the chapters, which is really nice because if you're not sure which chapter you need to be looking for information, having this page is like, you can quickly scan and see which one you need to go to without having to flip through page after page after page after page trying to find it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I hope it's something that they do in all of their sort of supplement books, because I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Is that once you get your core rules and then you start getting these supplement books and those books start to add up because there's quite a few that you can get, certainly for the Star Trek Adventures game. And to be able to have this quick summary of, okay, I'm looking for something specific, and then there you go, it's there. So I found this really, really handy. Go on, were you going to say?
The other thing that's handy about that is, like you mentioned, if you have multiple books and you remember a piece of information but aren't sure which book it came from, having that summary saves you looking through the entire book to find out if this is the right book you need to look into.
I would be inclined to take a printout of this one page, just mark it at the top saying it's Lower Decks, having multiple then of those pages for all different books, and that is your quick index of the books before you even drill down into the information. So yeah, I hope it is something that is on the other books. That'd be great. So basically, what does it do? We go through the state of the galaxy, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. That's the first chapter, so we'll come back to that in a second. Starfleet support operations, the lower decks, which is obviously really important. Science and technology, player options, games mastering, starships, starbases and vehicles, allies and adversaries, and then some mini campaigns. So, some of these, you could pretty much sort of see these in other styles of games, couldn't you? Because, typically most sort of source books will have something on games mastering. They will have something on maybe the technology or magic, maybe, that's being used. New creatures or adversaries that are being introduced. So there's a few things that are very sort of familiar, I would say, with other source books that I might have seen. What's kind of unique for this is this first chapter, State of the Galaxy, talking about support operations and the lower decks. That's very unique. That's what this particular book is bringing to the game. But let's take a look at the State of the Galaxy first, and it breaks things down there on the sort of introduction to chapter 1. And I've gone through this already. And as it says there, the galaxy as of 2380. So this is where anybody who's been watching the TV shows is going to start getting a little bit excited, because Star Trek does kind of play out on a linear timeline, even though the TV series jumps around depending on what sort of series, in what time frame that's happening. But ultimately, there's been obviously a series, multiple television shows, multiple movies, and really up until, I don't know what would be, mid-2000s, when the movies was as far as Star Trek went. And then recently-ish, within the last, I don't know what, gosh, is it maybe 10 years? They have jumped ahead. So they are, the Star Trek Picard series picked up when Captain Picard was much older, and that's carried on into a later future. But there was this large area of time that wasn't sort of filled. We didn't know what was happening when the last theatrical movie ended, which was the Star Trek Nemesis. This particular TV show picks up after that time. And so this book gives players and fans of Star Trek all the information as to what's been happening in the galaxy since that last movie. And this is what I sort of instantly went, oh, that's great, because I had exactly the same feeling when I was reading those Star Wars source books. What happened after Return of the Jedi? I had no idea at that time, and these source books helped start to, populate the galaxy for me and feed my imagination. The difference here is that because it is the Lower Decks series that is filling that void, it is an animated show, as you can see from the graphics, and it does have that modern, I suppose, Futurama, Rick and Morty style of comedy throughout it. So that's the best way to sort of describe it. Again, if you, as a fan who's watching it, you'll instantly know what I'm talking about. They riff on everything that is Star Trek. They're not aware as Star Trek as a TV show, because for them, they are always referring to what is in their history, but they respond to it in an exuberantly enthusiastic way. They essentially act like fans, but they live in that world. It's quite funny. It is, and it's great when you pick up on the references that they present. So they're always name dropping various characters or planets, events that happened in episodes. You, as a viewer, if you've seen the episode and you get it, then it's great, and if not, it's just a little bit of lore that is adding to the flavor of the episode. So it can be a lot of fun. So what the writers of this guide have done, have written it in the style of the characters from the show, which I think is quite unique. I don't believe that they have done that with the other books.
That's really neat too. It's a very fun way to connect things that I get.
Yeah, I found it. It's that, you've got the little logs from the captain and from the doctor. It is Ensign Bradwood Boimler from the USS Cerritos. You see, I should know these names. I listen to him say his name all the time, and I've been panicking about trying to get his name right. But you know how rubbish I am with people's names, so there's no exception on this one.
But I wouldn't know if you messed it up or not.
I know. This is great. This is the one time I might get away with it.
You'll absolutely get away with it.
So, I mean, as it stated, it's going to go through and it's going to explain to the reader what the state of each of the major political factions are at this time. And as I say, this pretty much picks up from the end of the Star Trek Nemesis movie, and works its way through, and it talks about sort of key points in the TV show. So as it says, the return of the Voyager. So the Voyager TV show, which went for, I think it's like 7 years worth of seasons. Well, what happened after they returned? We got the final episode, the last episode in the season. They finally get back to Earth. Spoilers, but hopefully you've all watched Voyager by now. Well, most people have. Yeah, I know. But so what happened with the crew? What happened with the ship? Yeah, it explains some of that. Because maybe there are elements that, as a games master, you could bring that into your game, because you've got all these years for you to be able to place your game in that sort of time frame. I find this quite funny. This character called Badgie. Badgie is a character that comes out of the lower decks. He's supposed to be... it's a Starfleet comedic version of the Microsoft paperclip. Okay, so imagine that, except he's slightly psychotic. So he's all these little... what do they call it? It's a little bit of information on the side. Like, they're not notes.
That's amazing that we have Clippy.
Yes, it's basically Starfleet Clippy. So in the 24th century, they have Clippy called Badgie, but he's slightly psychotic.
Oh, that's amazing.
You see. So this is the humor of the series, is that it there's things that you can relate to today, but dress it up in a Star Trek sort of suit, and there it is in the show. So the humor's at multiple levels. It's very clever. What else do we have? It keeps on just talking about how the organization of Starfleet has changed, because a couple of the shows, there was a push towards a more warring stance with various factions in the galaxy. Of course, Star Trek was all about discovering strange new worlds, new civilizations, yeah? But some of these shows ended up where it was all-out war. So what happens when Starfleet gets to a point where they can actually go back to a sort of sense of discovery? Talks about the not even just androids, but basically holograms. Holograms become sentient, and being able to give holograms rights as actual entities. From photonic light to life. This, of course, is making reference to the emergency medical hologram program in the Voyager series. So all of that goes on Starfleet, which of course is like the human sort of faction within the Star Trek universe. But then we also then have the Klingons. Now, you got to know who the Klingons are, surely.
I mean, I've heard names and stuff, but I don't know what they are or anything like that.
But oh, come on!
I really don't.
Do you know? Oh my goodness! Well, they're the warrior race. They're the ones who are always fighting. Yeah. Or they were the main adversaries in the original series show, and then in the show, the Next Generation show, we kind of became friends with them. We started working with them, and so. For a future stream, we're taking a look at Star Trek Adventures, but the Klingon version of it. That's gonna be fun. So we're gonna be doubling down on Klingons. So we'll be exploring what it is like to roleplay as a Klingon. But again, this now replicates and goes through and explains everything that's happened in the Klingon Empire. And we've got a nice little image there with their purple blood. But yes, it's all Klingons are all about fighting and honor and bringing, great honor to their houses. The Romulans, which are another large faction within the galaxy, they have been very important in recent events, and again goes into all the details on what's been happening with them. But again, it's written in the style of these ensigns, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get to that section. But these are not captains; these are low junior officers. So the style is a lot more relaxed, a lot freer. It's more relaxed because of the show, but also their positions as well. Maybe a little bit more relatable. I don't know. But certainly very, very different for Star Trek. So the Lower Decks show introduced well, in fact, actually, did they introduce it? No, I don't think they did. I think this was a race of creatures that were introduced in one of the shows, but it was kind of, the sort of a adversary of the week. They just appeared for that particular episode and we never saw them again. Well, that's one of the great things about the Lower Deck series, is that they take some of the aspects that we only got to see once or twice and then make a big thing out of it. So these are the Packlets, and they actually pose one of the greatest threats in the galaxy now, even though they are not particularly clever. It's quite surprising how they manage to survive. And so it's, even though it's giving you lots of information, but it's then starting, these little side pieces are starting to provide little bits of info in regards to how to use this particular race of characters in game terms. So we start getting these little call outs. And then, because we've got an entire galaxy to deal with, so that was all the major factions, here's some of the smaller ones that get introduced in the series. The Collectors Guild. Oh gosh, here we go. See, I've got names now. Drukmani. Let's go with Drukmani. And then,
sure, sounds right to me.
It looks about right, doesn't it? Yeah, but I've got more. I'm going to stumble at some point. Gelrakians. Okay, no, I see. So maybe this is where my forte is. I can do Star Trek names. It's just ordinary people's names I can't. Temerians. Orions.
Yeah.
Okay, see. The Orions, mostly known, certainly they're the green-skinned humanoids, mostly known as pirates, but apparently that's quite rude. You shouldn't make assumptions that not all of that faction are pirates. Maybe some of them are scientists. So,
scientific pirates.
Scientific pirates, yes. The Temerians, they talk in metaphors, and this was an element in one of the Next Generation episodes, and it was a time. In Star Trek, they have a thing called the Universal Translator that basically can decode and translate any alien language into English. It's really, really helpful.
So it's what the TARDIS does for the Doctor.
Yes.
There we go.
Exactly that. The thing is that this particular race, it doesn't work on them. And it certainly doesn't work because what they end up saying is effectively an English metaphor. And it's like, okay, how do you interpret the metaphor into actual meaning? And this is great that it has this little section here where it just gives you some examples. So I'm just gonna look here, and in fact, actually, it makes reference to the actual episode. Picard and Daphon at El Adrel, which is working towards a common goal, because that's what happens in that particular episode. But Kim, aren't her head cloudy? Do you want to get drunk? Because her head cloudy, yep, that says drunk to me. And was it Darmok on the ocean, a feeling of loneliness or isolation? So again, that's good fun, and certainly, you know, it's a callback to that particular episode. Then we move on. The series has introduced lots of new worlds, and this is really, really helpful. And, you know, talking about our other sort of sci-fi styled RPGs that we've looked at, being able to sort of draw up and work out a couple of you know, paragraphs on what is your world that you're going to be exploring. So I actually found this quite helpful, to be able to just, you know, write a small amount of text to explain that world. But this explains all of the ones that are introduced in the series so far. They're up to, I think, the 4th series comes out at the end of this year. So we got a few new worlds. So it then moves on. So that's basically given us an overview of, you know, the state of play of the galaxy. But the focus on this particular book is looking at essentially not the heroes. Everybody knows, you know, the captain, Captain Kirk, and the Enterprise. So we're looking at, you know, the best of the captains and the best of the starships, and that's where our focus has been. But the Lower Deck series looks at not the best starship and not necessarily the captain. It looks at the people who do the jobs. The TV shows, like I say, typically focus in on the main star. Well, these are the sort of unsung heroes, because, you know, for every one captain, there are hundreds of crew members who have to do menial tasks to keep the ship running, so that the captain can, you know, be all fantastic up on the bridge, doing the things that get noted in the history books. And because the Star Trek Adventures game wants to give you as broader experience in the Star Trek world, here you go. As Rogue is saying, the janitor, yeah, basically. I find this a really interesting sort of perspective, and, you know, let's just take a think about how this would be in other role-playing systems. You know, we're always typically, you know, in role-playing systems, are we always the hero? How do we get to sort of play the non-hero or somebody sort of lower down? I suppose it's, you know, people who come from sort of humble positions, isn't it? More so than dashing heroes that are, you know, have got their names in history. Yeah?
Humble beginnings.
Yeah. I think that's probably how it would translate in maybe a fantasy or medieval sort of setting. So these are the people who, you know, are overlooked typically, but are important and essential to the actual, you know, the running of the town or the city, or in this case, the starship. And the ships themselves, you know, everybody kind of knows the Enterprise. It is the flagship of Starfleet, but there are many, many, many other ships that, of course, do a lot of the the workhorses, the ones that do all the heavy lifting, once the flagship has moved on and gone on to its other exciting mission. But somebody else has to come along and do lots of follow-up work. So I thought this was an interesting chapter, because this is definitely filling the void, filling all those areas that the other books have not focused in on. And one of the features that was part of the series was second contact. So have you heard the phrase first contact?
No.
Okay. Roga, in the chat, do you know what first contact is? Let's see if Roga does. It's okay, it's fine.
I mean, I can guess.
Well, go on, have a guess.
I'm assuming it just means, you're the first contact with a certain species.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I can guess.
That's absolutely fine. That's fine. Yeah, basically, they have rules because they are a spacefaring race. And one of their rules is the Prime Directive. They are not allowed to interrupt the development of a world that is not aware of sort of intergalactic races, and it's kind of denoted by the speed that they can go at. So at this moment in time, planet Earth, no one's going to knock on our door because we do not know how to travel faster than the speed of light. But the moment we do, then there's the potential that an alien race might come along and say, okay, now you know how to leave your solar system. Well, we need to let you know that there's many, many more planets out there and lots of other people traveling around the galaxy. And we're going to introduce you to them and, make sure everything's okay because you're taking those first steps out there. So first contact is usually done by diplomats and by the sort of high-profile ships. But once that's done, then you need second contact. And that is where, I suppose, the administrators come on in and basically help that civilization. So I thought this was an interesting little table here to basically, yes, you can set up a second contact mission, but what type of mission might it be? Should we roll some dice?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it, eh? Let's see what type of second contact mission we can do. Okay. There we go. All right, so I do have one of the Star Trek Adventures D20s, and there it is. I have the Klingon dice, so we're going to use that. All right, let's see what we get. That is a 6. So our mission to whatever planet we have gone to, we would be providing them with agricultural supplies. So maybe it's a case of that they have developed technology, warp speed, but they need help with their agriculture. So there we go. So that's, that's a nice little way of getting different missions generated. And it goes into a bit more detail, I think, as I've kind of touched upon that. Looking at the ships that do second contact, which are typically not the flashiest of ships, they are the workhorse ships. So it continues. We continue to have Badgie giving us little bits of information. And it goes through all the different types of missions that might be done as follow-ups, diplomatics, developing economic relations. And then we get another table of, well, what does the civilization, or this new species, what do they have to offer the Federation of Planets? I think it's time for another roll.
Yes, all the dice rolls. All the dice rolls.
Okay, so we are helping this new contact planet with agricultural supplies, but how are they going to help the United Federation of Planets? Let's find out. 11. 11 is a scientific or educational expertise.
That's a good trade.
Okay. Well, here we go. Because we're gonna think this through a little bit, because that's going to help in another game that we will look at. So, what do you think then? So, this particular planet, we haven't decided a name or anything like that. We haven't decided what the people are like on it, but we know that we've made contact with them, and they need our assistance with agriculture. But they are able to help us with scientific or educational expertise. And what do you think that might be?
Well, it could be for anything. I mean, it could even help us with our knowledge of agriculture. Wow, that is a hard word to say. It could help us with our knowledge of agriculture by introducing a scientific way of harvesting the seeds or pollinating this product with this product. So,
but I thought we were helping them with that. I thought they would have a deficiency in that area. So what? So if they've got a deficiency in agriculture, but they are good with science or education, and that's something that it's something new to us. So what would they have that's scientific or educational that we wouldn't have, but they need our help with agriculture? That's quite an interesting mix. What do you think, Roger?
Well, but anything that they teach us, we can then take to apply to our agriculture, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's true. Potentially.
So, yeah. So, they teach us different ways of how to this can work like this and that, and we then take that and apply it to how we can apply that to what we're good at to make it work for us.
This is true. Oh, okay. That's an interesting idea. It continues to, go through these. So this particular chapter is looking at contact missions, and that was kind of the focus on one of the episodes. And it is just going into all the sort of a bit of a deep dive on it. Ultimately, when publishers make their role-playing games, they can only put so much info into the core books, don't they? So this is why source books are so essential, but can be really, really great reads, because you get then dedicated chapters on particular aspects. So we've had a couple of pages here purely on Second Contact. So if you wanted to make that the focus of one of your stories, here's a couple of charts, couple of rules, and a lot of background information for you to take advantage of, which is really cool. Yeah, it's basically, we got about 8 pages purely on Second Contact. So we move on then, and it's looking at basically duties and assignments, and this is focused more on the lower deck crew, on what they have to do. It is looking at their menial janitorial jobs. Oh, before I jump ahead, Roger is saying they could educate us more on that area of their solar system, or animal handling. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Maybe that's where their expertise is. Not great in actual crops, but maybe they're great with animals, or maybe there's something unique about their solar system that they have the information on that we don't. And of course, because the United Federation of Planets shares the information with all of their members, so it's like the Space UN. that being the case, we all get to benefit from it.
Maybe they know how to harness different elements for power or other things, which again, we can take and apply to improving our situation.
Yeah, I think there could be an element again, because this is Star Trek. Maybe there is an element that this particular civilization, they are hyper technical, have amazing technical aspects, but do not know how to deal with crops and basic resources. But maybe there's two classes within on this planet, because we didn't really talk about the actual population. So maybe it's the higher class who have all the technology, and it's the lower class who deal with the crops and the animals, and maybe there is that's it. And maybe there is a disconnect between the two of them. This is where this adventure comes on in, is that we've been brought on in because they've made first contact with us because they're technically advanced, but we actually find out that there is this lower caste of people on their planet that are not being particularly well treated, and they're trying to sort of circumvent them by using us as a third party, and maybe our morals of treating people well and nicely and equally maybe step on in, and we have to help the other group of people on this planet. So
could be interesting if you actually had a planet that was completely divided, and one half of it is your high society and your other half is your low society, but they've never met. There's just this big divide between the two, and the meeting is them trying to trade and survive together.
Right. Yeah, because that would work into proper sort of Star Trek storytelling. That's really interesting, because it's very much some sort of, the first contact came on in and they only saw one half of the population and thought that was the total. And second contacts come on in, and we've actually found that there's a much greater problem. And remember, we are the B team. We're not the ones who are necessarily equipped to deal with such situations. So it's a greater challenge for us to be able to deal with it. There you go. See, so we've got a little bit of a story sort of building up there, haven't we? Which is quite cool.
I am flying by just ideas that this is generating.
But it's fine. It's absolutely fine. That's the beauty of it. That is. Roga, I think you've watched an episode there. I can tell from your comment. Excellent. All right. So again, we're going into a little bit more detail then on the lower crew levels. As it says here, certain jobs on a starship are well known. These popular functions center around senior staff positions that garner high visibility. The captain, the executive officer, chief medical officer, chief engineer. And it says, really? Any of the chiefs? However, for every senior staff position, there are dozens of less popular duty assignments that nonetheless contribute to a well-functioning ship and crew. These jobs may not get all the glory, however, they are crucial to the smooth functioning of any ship or station. So it's an interesting element that they are adding. So we have duty shifts, alpha and beta shift and gamma shift, talking about how many hours are in a day, which is interesting. It then dealing with death. And there's quite a bit on this, and of course, in Star Trek, we know that the red shirts, certainly for a certain generation, were always the ones that ended up, dying. There used to always be a crew member who would die, but how to deal with death within the game? Because those red shirts are these lower level ensigns, the ones who get forgotten about. It's never the captain or the senior officers, because they need to appear in the show the next week, don't they?
Oh no.
So yes, how do you deal with death? But here we go. As seen in Lower Decks, characters can come back from the dead. So we have another handy chart. Has your senior officer come back from the dead? Okay. Was a senior officer you work with just miraculously resurrected? Roll a d20 and consult this table to explain the phenomenal event. Here we go.
Oh, this is amazing.
Oh, here we go. So let's find out our senior officer. We got to give our senior officer a name. What it's Lieutenant. We need a name. A name. Any name.
I don't know. The Muffin. Muffin.
David, what? Lieutenant Muffin?
Yes, Lieutenant Muffin.
Lieutenant Muffin. Okay, how did Lieutenant Muffin come back from the dead? Let's find out. 18. Surgically altered for a deep cover mission. In other words, they weren't ever dead. We thought they were dead, but they were changed, and they've been on a deep cover mission for several weeks, and now they are back. Well, that's good.
I feel robbed.
Did you want something better than that? What?
I mean, I was supposed to be dead.
Okay, well, hang on. Let's. I don't want to rob you, so let's find another way of bringing someone back. Okay, here we go. 7. They were stored by a microcosmic civilization in a mini Dyson sphere.
Oh, Donna Noble has been saved. That's all I can think of now.
Yeah, so basically, is this mini Dyson sphere the size of a golf ball or something? And the civilization is super small. And there was some accident that basically sucked in this particular officer into it. We all think that they're dead, but actually they've been living for a couple of weeks in this wonderful paradise civilization, and finally managed to get a message out by sending a signal. Maybe it's electronic bleeps in the computer that they initially think is an error and try and fix it, and then somebody realizes that it's some form of, ancient communication. It was something they used in the 20th century called Morse code.
Is it a paradise though? Like, is that what it is?
It could be, or maybe it's not. Maybe they come on out having spent. Maybe for us it's been a couple of hours when they've been in this. Well, it has to be a reasonable amount of time, hasn't it? Because we think they're dead. Or maybe we just assumed that they were dead because we just saw this flash of light and they got vaporized. And we were really, really efficient and held their service very quickly. Starfleet doesn't mess about. No sooner do you vanish in blinding light than right, get all the friends and family together. That's it. Call the service. Get the photograph on the coffin. We got nothing to put in it, but it's okay. We don't hang about doing our memorials.
Casket. Just close casket. It's fine. Nobody will know.
But all within 2 hours, do we find out that actually the officer has been locked in this golf ball, and when we eventually get to a point of rescuing them, we find that they were in the golf ball for 10 years.
Have you seen the episode of Doctor Who that is it's the library where they go
yes.
in and that's all I like. That's what I'm picturing is they're about to be killed, but this thing saves them. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be here.
Yes. Yeah. There you go. Something like that. There's a whole load of different ones. I like, I mean, obviously, assimilated by the Borg. That's going to be a popular one. Again, if you've watched the show, most of these you would get because they're all relevant to the show. And I'm saying that out to anybody, not just you specifically, but there's a lot of, these are the tropes in Star Trek of basically how you come back to life if you died. So I like number 20. No explanation. We don't know.
They're back.
You're just back. You're just back. You're just back. That's it. And again, another little point here: the role of the ship's counselor. You know, with so much death basically happening on starships, these counselors would just be worked constantly. Their office would be full of people, trauma, having to explain, you know, tell them, you know, get over it, and you know, calm down, and you know, take some time off. The amount of counselling, they just have this constant queue along the corridor of all the people they would be seeing every single day.
It's just a stamp. They stamp you. Everyone holds a paper, and then just a stamp. Next.
Yes. Yeah. Sarah's saying that's your roles. Yes, Sarah, you could be a counsellor, couldn't you? Absolutely. And just again to link it back to the series, is here's known and notable resurrections. So all of the characters in the TV shows who died and were then brought back again. So you can sort of get an idea and so maybe take something from what happened in the show, you know, and then repackage it for your characters within the game. So you could have a heroic death and then work with your games master and know that you're going to be brought back at a future point, which is quite cool. Family connections, because many of the large starships do have family on board as well. And gives a few rules on here. In fact,
no, she's wearing a red shirt.
but that's okay. In this timeline, she's okay. She's in a section. Actually, is she okay? Yes, she is. It's the gold shirt that needs to worry. So.
Oh no!
So the red shirt, she's fine. The gold shirt, yeah, we'll see. The two blue guys, they should be okay as well.
No.
But so here we go. So dealing with family. So in the Lower Decks show, the main character who is down on the lower decks, on the bottom crew, it's her mum who is the captain of the ship. So can you imagine sort of the dynamics of, you know, Mariner constantly is misbehaving, and it's her mum who's basically in charge. How awkward is that for the mum? But we have another table here, random family events. So, let's just roll. Let's find out. What is going to happen with our family member who's on the ship? Number 3. An eccentric relative comes for a visit. Oh, okay. Maybe it's that auntie that constantly, even though you're now a junior officer on a starship, but they always see you as being that little boy, little girl, calls you by your nickname, and you're trying to get the respect of your peers, and they are just embarrassing you just so much.
Just snickering behind you and just
Yes, your crewmates are just having fun, aren't they? It then moves on to reassignments and transfers. What happens if you want to go to a different ship? And then gives a little bit, we seem to have jumped a little bit here. It's second contacts based on famous first contacts. So references to events that have happened in the movies or in the TV shows. So again, it's just delving down into all the sort of minutiae of what the Star Trek universe has to offer. You know, fans and players will have these questions, and here are some answers for us to work from. But this is really going for it. Starfleet transfer regulations. So you can actually quote a regulation number. That's something. That is something. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize they went to that level. So, yes. I want to quote Starfleet Regulation 0209333440. Transferring of an officer to another starship. Fantastic. Okay. We were only on chapter 2. You see, again, this is the thing, that this book just has so much information, but it's all sort of specific areas. So we got Division 14. This is actually quite funny. So during the course of all these Star Trek TV shows, as we've already found, you can die. But if you're lucky enough not to die, maybe you end up with a gruesome injury or illness, something that the doctor on the ship or the station cannot cure quite simply with maybe a hypo spray or maybe doing a little bit of medical jiggery pokery. If that is the case, you get sent to Division 14. And Division 14 is the Starfleet hospital for all the weird and wonderful illnesses. Which means...
I'm sorry. We're going to have that word again. Jiggery what?
Jiggery pokery. That's what doctors do and scientists and technicians. Jiggery pokery. Come on. So,
oh gosh.
We've got a table. but this is awesome. This is one of the best tables I've ever seen. Look at those illnesses and injuries. You have been rendered hairless, pink, and blind. You have bulging eyes capable of X-ray vision. You have lobster hands melt any metal upon touch.
You can't wear clothes and pain when exposed to light.
So let's find out.
Hits home.
Let's find out what our poor hapless ensign, what's happened to them. Okay, here we go. A 4. Exposed brain and memory degradation.
Oh.
So that's pretty nasty. So basically half of our skull has disappeared and we are losing our memory. So what's happened is we were caught in an explosion of triox compound mixed with an unknown pharmaceutical agent. And how we get cured is the insertion of a subdermal bioprobes designed to recode DNA. Of course it is. Like it.
Oh.
Of course it is. How about... here we go. Your illness is you speak only with Klingon expletives. This happened because you were struck by a graviton beam, and the only way to cure you is musical therapy. So soothing music will get the foul Klingon language from your mouth. Again, this is the fun sort of aspect of the Star Trek show, where these diseases and illnesses are, you know, a little bit silly, but yes, a lot of fun to be had. Okay.
I feel like number 17 is just like part of that is just me. It's just me.
So can't wear clothes and pain when exposed to light. So you were temporarily split in two by a magnetic field. And you need to be held in a temporal stasis pod. Hopefully not forever.
I'm allergic to the sun.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Is that you
so
then?
I have pain when I go in the sun.
Oh my goodness! So have you been exposed to magnetic fields? Was that the cause?
Apparently, it must have been.
Well, obviously so. The table says it's so.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I do not have access to a temporal stasis pod, I am afraid. But hopefully we will invent one soon for you, because that'd be very helpful. All right. So, going on to lower decks. So this is more specific to, and again, this is all just information, just filling all the little spaces that the core book cannot deal with, and that the other books have not dealt with. But it's more specific to the show here. And it's basically telling you about what is your career in Starfleet. Because, of course, the captain, well, they've been in Starfleet Academy. They have spent years there to learn all about starship operations, and maybe they have done training in specific areas, maybe command, to be a captain, or maybe they went for one, maybe the science or engineering, and then they've spent their time as a junior, sort of as a cadet, and then moved on into junior officers, and then working through the rank scale all the way up to captain. So this is now going through everything about what is the life of being in Starfleet.
So is that what this white and gold is? Is that like cadet uniform?
I think, okay, here we go. See, if anybody who's into Star Trek suddenly calls me out on this, I'm in trouble. So I'm looking at those pictures. They've got one pip up on their neck collars. So I think that they are going to be junior lieutenants. And actually, they are wearing their dress uniforms. Maybe they're on a date. But
what about the other one?
It's the future. It's okay.
This guy's crashing the date. Like, hey guys, I'm here too.
I thought they were dress uniforms, but yes, it looks as if maybe they're not on a date. Maybe they're just having a nice meal together. Okay, and they've decided to dress more formally for it. But they are all one pip. So they're all junior officers.
Oh, all right.
But chat, you correct me if you think differently.
They seem to be siding with you.
Are they siding with me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go with that. So again, this is the thing: is that in the typical Star Trek Adventures game, you're probably going to be a officer much higher up the ranking table, because typically your officer is on the bridge. But this now is giving you all the rules for those junior officers, which means that you could actually have a real career with your character in the game. You could start off as a young sort of 20-something cadet and actually work your way through this character, game after game after game, getting older, getting more experience, as it says here now, getting promotions, and advancing through the ranks to ultimately, go to captain if that's what you actually wanted. I think that's really, really cool. We've done lots of role-playing games where you do get sort of expertise and you do sort of build up. But I've never felt that any game you would do an entire life of a character, unless it was a short-lived one. But this feels like that you could very much live a character's entire life, because humans in this sort of era, they live 100, 120 years old, no problem, because of course medical technology human lifespans are much greater. And that's just talking about humans. There are, of course, alien species that live naturally longer lives. So I think this is quite a cool aspect. And it does show a example of a career for one of the characters from the TV show, to get an idea the types of things that they did as part of their career. This made me laugh, because it made me laugh when I saw it in the show. Because it's not something that typically happens in the show. But dealing with nudity in the 24th century. This is, again, the sort of the Rick and Morty, Futurama sort of style. Yeah, you know, Star Trek kind of, it can be a little bit prim and proper. The animated show just has a lot of fun with that. I suppose people are nude in the future, so, you know, why not? Yes. You got to deal with it. So there you go. Gives you a few rules on if you were, for whatever reason, to include nudity in your game, how you deal with it.
If your first contact was with a planet that was just entirely nudist.
Yes.
Deal with that now.
Well, there you go. You see, that's perfect. That does kind of sum it up. You could find interesting story points as to why. You know, I think it's kind of, I suppose, you know, on the TV show, because the TV show, it was done as a sort of family programming, there was never any sort of real need for that sort of element. But of course, yes, most characters, you know, go to their quarters and will probably take their clothes off at some point. So if there was a need, then here we go. Let's just spend a couple of paragraphs on it, just to detail it in rules in game. It's been covered, hasn't it? Or uncovered, depending.
Well, and what if you were injured and that they need to look at the injuries?
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's dealing more in a how to sort of describe it. It's a story element as opposed to. Yeah. You know, I think it's dealing with the sort of rules, making sure your players are happy with the idea and the concept of what you're trying to do. And just essentially just assigning a few paragraphs to it, because it's not there in the TV show or in the movies. It is featured in the animated, and it's like, okay, well, how do we deal with this? Here we go. Let's just give it a little bit of focus.
See, I would take a point out of Doctor Who and make it that they were, the planet they were on, if they had to walk into a church or some sort of area that had any type of religion to it, you had to be completely naked. Right. Because that's it in one of the episodes, and then they use the hollow clothes.
In fact, here you go. Here we go. I can give you an example. It's just come back to me. I just read this sentence. So, nudity is a cultural choice among many species, and unlike modern human culture, is not automatically associated with sexuality. And I just remembered that there is a race of humanoid creatures that, as part of their wedding ceremony, they get married totally in the nude. So there you go. Okay. And so there's an interesting little bit of dialogue where the human crew, they have one character who is of this alien humanoid species, and they are getting married to a human. And of course, you know, they are talking to the other characters, basically saying, well, we're going to do the traditional wedding, which means we are all going to be naked. And the captain sort of like, you know, looks down at himself and goes, okay, I better go off to the gym then. So because he's expected as a captain, he's got to be there, and you've got to honor the traditions of that planet. So there you go. Okay, so we've come from nudity. We go to holodecks. Do you know what a holodeck is?
No.
No? A holodeck is a space on a ship or a station that can generate three-dimensional physical items and a physical place, so it makes you believe that you're in this real environment. So the space around you is as big as a large room, and what it does, it's really fascinating, is it brings in actual real plants and trees, and then as you walk through it, it gets rid of the ones that are behind you and puts new ones in front of you. So it's like a video game, it's like augmented reality, but it's actually there. And this is what starts.
VR.
It's VR, but actually there. But only but only for a section around you, for as far as you can see and touch. Yeah. Are you laughing at what Roger's saying?
Yes.
Nudity on the holodeck, yes. Well, you see, yeah, there are some characters who use the holodeck for other purposes. Yes, yes. It's going to happen, isn't it? Hey, yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Well, here we go. So, which is one of the jokes of one of the jobs, which basically is cleaning out the holodeck biofilters, which is supposed to be quite a scummy job. So you can read into that as you see fit. But yes, it basically goes through detailing a little bit about what you do with your downtime, programming a holodeck simulation. Holodecks are cool because you can create a novel and actually act out within a novel on a holodeck, which is a lot of fun. So you could actually have an adventure within your adventure, because your crew members are just using the holodeck, and the holodeck can take you anywhere. So you could take your Star Trek crew members and put them into a fantasy medieval Tolkien-esque setting, because they're just on a holodeck program having entertainment, part of their downtime.
Do you always know you're in a holodeck when you're doing it, or can you be in there unaware?
No, you know that you're on a holodeck, and there are safety protocols, which means that nothing can harm you, so you can't be killed until the ship goes through a spatial anomaly, which then knocks out the safety protocols, locks the door, and you suddenly find that you're stuck in there and anything can kill you. So the rest of the crew are trying to get you out, and you're trying to fight for your survival.
Oh, that's fantastic!
I'd love to be able to say that I make this stuff up on the fly, but I've just watched a lot of Star Trek. Okay,
that is fantastic.
The possibilities of holodeck stories are brilliant. Really, really cool. I'm going to have to move a lot faster here because I am talking too much. So it does move on. It moves on to essentially lower decks. Now we've been, most of this has been focused on Starfleet. So as I say, the good guys, the humanoid races, or certainly the humans from Earth. But what about the different alien species like the Klingons or the Romulans that we mentioned? Because every single faction has lower deckers. Every ship has the menial, the lower bottom sort of crew, the ensigns, and so it's got to spend a little bit of time looking at those, and so it looks at the Klingons and the Pakleds, and the Borg. The Borg have lower deckers. So do the Vulcans, Andorians, and Ferengi, which is very, very cool. I'm just going to get to this one quickly here, because I don't know if you noticed these various characters on the right hand page. We have an Andorian an Orion with a green skin down at the bottom. We have a human who has a cyber implant, in the middle, and at the top, yes, we have a dolphin.
Oh, is it a dolphin? I thought it was like a oh my gosh, I can't think of the word now. What are they? They're white. Oh, Sarah, help me out here.
I'm sure it's a dolphin, or it could be a killer whale. I don't think it's a killer whale. It's a dolphin.
No, not a killer whale. They're oh my gosh, it's gonna bug me. I'll figure it out. I'll just yell it out when I hear it.
Okay. Well, this particular character is part of cetacean ops, and I'll throw this one out for anybody in the chat. If you can give me the reason why we have a dolphin on a starship, you get some points.
Beluga whale.
I think I think some whales might be on, but certainly dolphins are.
I meant that's what he looks like. He looks like a beluga whale.
Right. I think he's a dolphin now. But anyway, we'll see. Let's see if anyone in the chat knows the relevance of the cetacean ops. All right, so let's move on.
Is it because of their echolocation?
That's a good point. You see, I only know it from one aspect, but I'm not discounting what you're saying, because maybe they might have something to do with that. But remember, they are in a spaceship. Okay, so echolocation, I'm not sure works quite so well in space. It's got to be relevant to Star Trek. So Sarah, you're saying GPS? No. It's got to be it's a Star Trek related answer. We'll see. All right. So doing the work. These are going through.
Now I need to know.
I'll tell you at the end. So these are going through all the menial jobs that your ensigns could be asked to do. EPS technicians, or emergency systems mechanics, or emergency shuttle bay technicians. And then we have guides. Menial tasks for junior officers. So again, we've got a chart of rolling a d20. You've got to grab that coil spanner and get to untangling that shield generator. It's great. I really am starting to love tables. Tables are cool. And then there is a task for how long this task is going to take. It's going to take you 4 hours. And then there is a guide on all of these side missions. So, did I do one of these? Oh, clean cetacean tank. Number 19. That's the side mission. And then there's an event that while you're cleaning the tank, someone loses a beloved pet, lucky charm, or an important personal item and needs the team to help find it, because there's always something to drag you away from it. So, Roger's talking about the whale song. So all starships now have a deck that have either whales or dolphins on them. Yes, it's in reference to one of the movies where they had to go back in time to rescue some whales that became extinct, because they didn't realize that sea mammals like whales and dolphins were actually a really, really intelligent species. We just hadn't learned how to speak their language, and we hunted them to extinction. And by the 23rd century, an alien race came along to ask, well, why are they no longer singing to us? So we had to go back in time and repopulate them. And so now
I'm still going with what Sarah's saying as well. She's saying the same thing as me. It's navigation.
No, I don't know if it's navigation or if it's, but it certainly is. They are there to make sure that the song is being sung still, should that alien species ever be around. So, yeah, it's just interesting that, yes, there's a deck which is a big swimming pool with dolphins in it.
She said she's right.
Okay, I'll go with you, Sarah. You're right as well. So are you, man. So it's doing supervising characters. So this is a bit an interesting part. This is actually creating a superior officer to go along with your lower decker. And I believe this allows you to be able to, as you're role playing, you've got your primary character as the lower decker, but if you needed to be able to do a higher decision, then you've got an officer that you can kind of role play for a little bit and then go back to your lower ranked character. So this gives you the opportunity to be able to roll up these supervising characters. Okay, so that is the core sort of 3 chapters of the book as far as the lower decks sort of aspect of it. I think I can go reasonably faster now with these because moving on, this is just a lot of now additional information. Science and technology. So it is basically just filling in all the little gaps, anything that you might want to add into your stories. So adding planetoids, adding parasites and symbiotes, adding nanites, using training holocubicle, planetary shields, and then having a get to the right page, a menagerie. Get it right.
Menagerie. See, I can say that word, but I couldn't say agriculture.
Agriculture. So having a whole variety of different creatures, because why not? And all these different creatures and what they might be. So again, it's just adding different aspects to the game that are just not part of the core rules. Oh, there we go. We see we got a bit of nudity going on with this giant sort of spider.
Oh god, I hate it.
I don't know if I hate the giant spider or I hate the fact that they're both in their underwear with a giant spider. That's that's more disturbing. Okay.
No, for me it's definitely the spider. It's definitely the spider.
Then we'll move on. So then we have an addition. This is chapter 5. We have more different types of characters that you could potentially have as the player. This is introducing essentially new races from different planets that are part of Starfleet. So let's get some names to ruin here. Apagosian. Let's go with that. Again, giving you info. Oh, here we go. We do have... Oh, gone too far. We do have the cetaceans. Native to Earth, the cetaceans are one of numerous species indigenous to the planet. For much of the species' history, they lacked means of verbal communication with land-dwelling life forms on the planet, a situation which may have continued perpetually if humanity had not developed the universal translator technology. As one of the first species to benefit from the advent of the extra-species communication, cetaceans were able to foster a better working relationship with the land-dwelling humans. Actually, are we going to find out then? Here we go. Found themselves valuable contributors to Starship. Their sensory capabilities and instinctive understanding of navigating three-dimensional locations often finds their contributions to both navigation and communications vital. I think Sarah and Roger were absolutely spot on in the chat. So there you go. They have special swimming pools for them to be able to be an active member of the crew. Oh, points to Sarah and Roger. We have cliquettes. We have exocomps that are essentially robots that have
That's
become
just a little robot buddy.
yeah, but they've become sentient. I think.
Oh, no.
I think I'm
So
right in this.
they're Daleks.
Well, exocomps were basically little robots that were created to fix starships and star bases and things like that. But they actually became sentient. And once they become sentient, of course, it's not fair to then use them as slave labor. Yeah. So basically, they got rights and they got personalities and they got names. But a lot of them stay with their crews because they are part of the crew. But
I'm sorry, but if you had a little robot that was like fixing stuff, why weren't you naming it to begin with?
I think you might have named it, but it might have had its own name. But you now, as a player, can play an exocomp, which is very, very different. You can play a Gorn.
It used to be called R2D2.
Oh, you can't say that. Kalon and Packleds. And then we tried a little bit of Temerian before, so we've got the Temerian. So those are the different races that we can now play as. It then adds even more tools and weapons. Again, all of these are new additions because they were featured in the Lower Decks show. So they just add to the list of all the other weapons that have been included already. There's a chapter on the games mastering on how to run a Lower Decks style of mission and campaign, and it goes into how to sort of inject maybe a bit more humour in the style of the show. I'm going to skip through this relatively quickly.
That giant head is trying to eat the ship.
Well, that's very Star Trek-y, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, it is. Oh, but that's very Star Trek 60s. 60s Star Trek, that is. More details. We'll skip through all that. Planning story arcs and components. So, you know. I like this one. Here we go. Can you tell me, does that picture mean anything to you? And I should be able to do this out for everybody in the chat as well, because yes, it is a Star Trek picture, but where else have you seen it?
Oh, I mean, no.
No, is it not? You will have seen it because just being on the internet, it will have been a meme that will have popped up at some point. Or maybe not. Or maybe you completely missed it, but I've seen it so many times.
No, I got nothing.
You got nothing. Roga's talking about a big cigar tried to eat the Enterprise. Yeah, yes, that's true as well, Roga. Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. just accept these things happened in the 60s.
Okay.
There you go. Sarah's got it. Charlie. Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about a character called Charlie. We're not talking about anything else. Yeah, it's a meme from was it Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
That's another show I haven't seen.
You've not seen that show? Okay. Well, there you go. But again, that's the humour of this show, is that it injects things that are popular in our culture now. So other TV shows. If you're a Star Trek fan, you probably might have watched Always Sunny, and you probably watched a number of other shows, and they make references subtly to those other shows in there as well, but then do it in a Star Trek style. So I thought that was quite funny when I saw that one. Interestingly enough, they don't mention Star Wars. There's no Star Wars. That doesn't happen.
Well, they do now that I'm going to play one of those little robots, and I'm either going to be R2D2 or BB-8.
BB-8. Okay, so what have we got? We got some mission briefs here, giving examples on how to put together a mission. Quite a few, which is all good. And then the bit that I always like with these, and I liked with the Star Wars source books when I used to get them as a kid, is everything to do with the starships. Because they're kind of, you know, sometimes the star of the show. So this is the ship from Lower Decks. It is the Cerritos, which I still don't know how anyone is supposed to get down to the bottom section, considering there's no lifts. It's a very strange looking ship. And it doesn't explain it. It doesn't explain it. So how that happens, don't know. And, you know, of course, it includes details on the ship from a sort of description and a history point of view, and then it has sections on for the gaming side of the ship. But again, like with any of these source books, you know, if you are a fan of the material, you can just quite happily read these because you're just enjoying learning about your favourite ship. So they just include all the ones that have been included in the show. And then some of the alien species ones. And then some interesting ones for story points. And more alien ships with the Packleds, because they are the big, potential big bad. So again, just lots and lots of stuff.
Being yelled at in chat.
Why? What did they say?
Because I haven't seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
You see, now you've got two shows to watch and catch up on. My goodness.
I can make it worse. I've only seen like 1 or 2 episodes of Futurama too.
No, you've been doing so for weeks now. You've been my rock, my right hand, my wingman on all these RPGs, and now suddenly we found the weakness.
Oh.
It's okay. It's fine.
This is where it all comes to pieces.
Well, it's going to make the next one very, very funny for us, which is going to be good. Ground vehicles, or what else have we got? We got allies and adversaries. Again, these are all characters from the show. People that we've had to be introduced to. There's just so much. And again, then it goes over onto the Klingons, so we just bring in new characters, and then the Packleds again, and then other NPCs. There's just so much stuff. I'm just flicking through, and I think I probably get to stop in a second because we get beasts and creatures, which is all good. So this is just all adding to the information that Games Masters can draw from. And then, right at the back then, Chapter 9, 4 mini campaigns, which we won't go into because we don't want to spoil them. But that, basically, is the book. As I say, it's a lot of information, that if you're playing Star Trek Adventures, it's a great resource. It's just because it's focused on the Lower Decks TV show, it actually just adds so much info for your game in general. Whether you decide to incorporate the sort of the humor element of what the show offers, that's up to the GM and the players, but the essence of all those brand new ships and planets and creatures and the sort of rank structure and the junior officers, well, that can be played totally straight without laughs, and that's actually a really important and a huge part potentially of the game. So I think it is a worthwhile addition to all the other source books that are all trying to just fill out this massive universe. There's obviously so much for them to talk about. And what we will end up doing is we will get other source books from other games and be able to sort of take a look at those and see how they fit on in with their particular game systems. But yeah, that's Star Trek. We will look at the core rules later on, so that's gonna be fun. But it's fine because we'll just be looking at it as in a similar way. I can look at it from a Star Trek perspective, and you can look at it as just a game system. Let's see what that system has to offer and how it presents itself. But what I've got here as a little bit of a sort of tease is...
Chad has put me in timeout.
They put you in timeout. I do have here, because this is not quite released just yet, this is the Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log, the solo role-playing game version. Now, what this does is it allows you to basically write a solo diary or a log of your adventure, your mission, whatever that might be, using a sort of cut-down version, a simplified version of the rules system for Star Trek Adventures. I've been watching some videos and reading through this book, and in fact I'm going away at the weekend and I will be taking this with me to start my sort of in-depth reading of it, because it's well, as Spock might say, it's fascinating. There's so much information. I mean, here we go, I've actually just turned to the perfect page here. So we were looking at other solo role-playing games before, and this one, it goes into so much more detail. You know, you create your character and your ship, you select a mission type, you generate an incident, a theme with advantages and complications. You have an encounter, you generate people, places and things, and then you write your opening captain's log, and then you start playing. And basically you have to essentially do a script for a Star Trek adventure. But of course you are describing how the characters respond to the events that they meet. This is a great book. We will look at it in more detail once I understand a little bit more about it. But it is lots and lots of wonderful tables to go through. And this is actually perfect for somebody who doesn't know anything about Star Trek. It has Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 tells you all about Star Trek. 10 facts about Star Trek. Because
Isn't that handy?
It's very handy. Who would have guessed? Yeah. Read these chapters and you will know all about Star Trek. You will do, 70 odd years worth of Star Trek TV. It's a very interesting read. So if you knew nothing, then you would certainly catch up very, very quickly. And then, it goes through how to actually create your characters, how to create your missions, what type of starships you might potentially be on, and then rules for combat. Yeah, it's great. It's really, really nicely done, but we'll take a more in-depth look at a later date. So that's something for the near future. You do get points for tribbles, absolutely.
Yay!
I don't believe at this time you can play a tribble in Star Trek Adventures, but you can certainly have them there. Definitely can have tribbles.
Oh. No, I don't know, Sarah. I'm sorry. It's a little creature, isn't it?
Something is called a tribble. It is a little creature. Do you know what's do you know what's important about a tribble?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. Rogue, tribbles. All tribbles do is reproduce. Yes, they eat and reproduce.
So they're bunny rabbits.
Kind of, but they are just little balls of fluff of multiple, varying sort of colours and sizes, and they.
Why can't I feed them?
Because they just reproduce. They reproduce just really, really quickly. They just eat and reproduce, and so before you know it, they are everywhere.
But then, wouldn't I have a tribble army that would? It's just awesome.
They're not like gremlins. you know. Here we go. I think Netflix will have Star Trek. It might, or Paramount Plus. You could watch.
No, I did Google it to see if I could.
Did you?
Could make them happy, but no, it's on Paramount Plus, and we don't have Paramount Plus.
Oh, they used to be on Netflix. You could watch all the Star Trek shows. But yes, there is an episode. I think it's called Trouble with Tribbles, which is very famous. And then there is a special episode of one of the later TV series where they, with amazing sort of special effects, go back to that original episode but insert new characters and film things from different angles, and it gives the entire episode new context. It's really, really clever. I think it won lots of awards at the time. So yes, the Tribbles are a fun little character that pop up every now and again. They do nothing but eat and reproduce.
The only reason I know Tribble is because growing up there was a TV show called Polka Dot Door, and one of the little creatures on there was called Tribble, and it was just this little creature and it was like some robotic like remote control car, right? Because it was in the 90s, so it was something like that they put this over, and all it was just like, it just looked like it was just fuzzy, and it would run around and make noises at you.
Right. Right, with you. Yeah.
Here's what I know it.
I think we'll have to find some sort of resource for you to be able to watch those episodes. I mean, you need to watch them. Roger, yes, Harry was a different guy. I think you're thinking of Harry Mudd. But there was definitely a guy trying to sell those tribbles. And of course, as you know, Klingons do not like tribbles. So the galaxy's most fierce warriors hate little fluff balls. So yes, it's very funny. It's all serious, but actually really funny when you think about it. They had a great purge of tribbles, a great extermination.
Oh no!
Yes, yes. These mighty warriors hacking away at little balls of fluff. They never show it, but that is in essence is what happened.
Oh.
Hey, you started it. You brought the tribbles into it.
I was trying to get chat back on my side.
I'm sure there must be some source book that explains all of that somewhere. I mean, there must be a tribble planet somewhere.
Well, otherwise, where did they come from?
Exactly, and it'll be some naive starship person who, because they coo a nice, melodic coo, you know. And so it's like, oh, they're soothing. And so you want to stroke them, and they coo even more. But then they eat and they reproduce and they eat and reproduce. And before you know it, you're suffocating with tribbles around you. So.
But what if you only had one? Does it still reproduce?
Yes. It doesn't require, that's the point. It doesn't require a mate or anything like that. It just reproduces.
Oh.
Yes, so they are very, very dangerous. They're very, very dangerous. And that's why the Klingons hate them. Because they see them as a true threat. So, yeah.
Huh.
And they must be exterminated.
This is fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Okay. We will have more fun with Star Trek in a few weeks' time.
Oh gosh. Well, thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining on in. It has been it's been interesting.
Yeah. Very informative.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, and we will see you for the next time. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Okay, so our thanks to Mandana for joining in as we looked at Star Trek Adventures Lower Decks campaign guide from MODIPHIUS Entertainment. Wow, that was fun. You see, we learned something new today. We learned about dolphins and about tribbles and about small microscopic universes that characters get sucked into. So, you know, it's all good. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. We will be playing a tabletop game with dice on Thursday, so you know how that's going to fare. If you like bees, you will want to check out this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sarah will be joining me. So join us from 7 o'clock p.m. GMT +1 on Thursday evening for that. But until then, thanks for watching and bye for now.